Hello everyone, and welcome to episode 23 of the Ayesphere. I think it's episode 23, and it's our final one of the year 2022. What a garbage year.
It's been awful.
It's been terrible. However, the one good thing that's come out of it is obviously this podcast. There is silver linings. There is light at the end of the tunnel. But no, it's actually been really good fun. So what are we talking about today, Joy?
Well, I figured we could talk about Christmas movies, seeing as how what we're doing to ourselves next week. I kind of want to talk about some of the fun tropes there. And then I also started watching Andor this week after everyone kept yelling at me to watch Andor. So nice. I was watching that. So it's Christmas, Andor, and whatever else we get distracted by.
Excellent. So, okay, favourite Christmas movie of all time? I'm going to go with the classic. I really like It's a Wonderful Life. That was my mum's favourite when I was growing up, and it's still her favourite. And it's one of those ones that a lot of people kind of miss the message of. Yep. And I still really enjoy like the actual anti-capitalist message of it. It's very on brand for this podcast. Nice. My second favourite Christmas movie is probably Miracle on 34th Street. I think. Cool. I think it's called the Santa one. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I've pulled up a list of Christmas movies because I realise how few that I actually know.
How little you know.
I know. I think I struggle to say, I've got a favourite Christmas movie because I wouldn't say I'm a particular fan. I know this is like, I was so desperate to like find something good to to talk about on the Christmas side, because I have feelings about Christmas that I feel after the year we've had, let's not go into them. But like there's been a few like funny kind of recent Christmas movies that I think have came out in the past couple of years. There was one like, and all of them follow the same kind of like plot beats. It's like the ones that aren't Hallmark films, but like they have the same plot points of Hallmark films, if you get me. It's always the city person going back home and finding love with the local yokel that they've like were at school with or whatever. There was one last year that was called Love Hard.
I saw that one,
and it was like a good level of like guff. It was kind of like it wasn't like a children's like Christmas movie. It was just like let's have a bit of fun. And I think like the premise of that was that she's like a California marketing person and she goes back home. But she's been catfished. That was the whole thing, wasn't it? She was catfished by like a guy, and she ends like it's terrible plot, but she gets catfished. She goes and visits this guy for Christmas, then gets catfished, then stays over at like the catfisher's house, and over the course of the film, like falls in love with him. It's like it's garbage in a good way, I suppose.
It's garbage in a fun way.
Yeah.
Which is what I love about Christmas. If it's a decent Christmas movie, like if it's not like the sentimental, like actually has a message ones, I want it to be garbage, but in a good way.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find the one that I really liked last year. So you can keep talking over me whilst I'm Googling stuff. But I just want to point out that Metal Gear Mandy pointed out in the chat that A Muppet Christmas Carol is a favourite. A Muppet Christmas Carol is up there for me. That's one of my absolute favourites.
I would say so. Are you one of the... Sorry, I'm going to have to ask the question. Are you one of the people who think that Die Hard is like a Christmas film, or are you anti the people? Like, because
I'm not anti anything. I think people can enjoy it at Christmas. I've watched it at Christmas, but to me, it's not a Christmas movie.
I feel like the people who really argue that Die Hard's a Christmas film, I've become more annoying than the people who say that Die Hard isn't. It's like I mean, yeah, I get it. Just like you enjoy watching it at Christmas, that's fine. But like, just whatever.
Yeah, which is fine.
The Snowman's a belter, obviously.
Yes.
The Snowman's good. I like the Snowman, and
Are you? Oh, right. Okay. Here's a question. What's your opinion on Love Actually?
Do you know, I really enjoyed Love Actually when I was a lot younger, and then I rewatched it again as an adult, and I was like,
You hate it. You absolutely hate it. Like, you hate it. I hate it.
Yeah, it's got moments that are actually okay.
Yeah, I think some of the stories are all right, but like, what's it? Colin Firth's story with the worker lady,
the maid that comes in and speak English. Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah. They were funny, but I didn't like her. I didn't like the dad that was always putting her down and everything else. But there was, what's he called? Hugh Grant in that.
Yes.
You might be too young to remember this, but the scandal it caused when Hugh Grant was the love interest was Colleen McCutcheon, is that her name, from EastEnders? People were freaking out because it was like, oh, but he's like the nice, tough, the nice rich boy, and then there was just like the lassie from EastEnders, and it caused people to like freak out. They're like, no, they're mismatched. It's like, it's a Christmas romance. Leave it alone.
Everyone's mismatched in a Christmas romance.
Yeah. Sorry, Holly Mop's being distracted in the background. I'm sure everyone's enjoying it.
I'm quite a big fan of like silly Christmas like thrillers and like horrors that come out. Like there's Krampus. Remember like the Krampus one. But then there's one this year called Violent Night, which looks like quite a good laugh. It's like if Santa was also John Wick. And like he actually has to like defend a family or something. And it's got the guy from Stranger Things in it, Thingy Barber. He plays the older guy, the adult boy. Mm-hmm. And like I've not seen it or anything, but it's like that looks good. Like it looks like something shit and fun that would be quite. Like, you know what I mean?
It does. Yeah.
And like, sorry, go on.
I was going to say the one I watched last year, which it got panned by critics, but I think Tumblr would like it. It was Single All the Way, which was a queer holiday rom-com, and it's
I might have watched that actually.
It's fake dating, so it's I don't want to go home single to my parents. Hey, best friend, will you pretend to date me so that I'm not the single one?
Yeah, I saw that one as well, and it's great.
It's great. I love it. But it was and then he set up his dream business for it. It's wonderful. It's really good, and I got so annoyed that it got panned by critics. And I'm going, it is the trashy TV that we have to put up with constantly, and the stuff gets rave reviews. As soon as it's queer, it's mediocre. It's like, when it's all mediocre, it's fucking supposed to be mediocre.
Yeah, it's like
let the gays make bad television.
No, I think it's definitely one of it had like a Hallmark plot, and you just know if they'd swapped it for some white blonde lassie, like
I know it would have been
critics would have been
uh-huh.
like, oh, it's the Christmas film of the year. But fake dating, Joy's there for it.
I am a slut for fake dating.
It's a very good trope. I like it.
I love it. It's been my favorite since I was 12 years old and first stumbled into fandom. It was like, oh, they're pretending to date. Tell me more. So I was really happy last year with that.
The Polar Express.
The Polar Express I thought was good for kids, and then I watched it and it's actually quite scary, so it probably is still good for kids. I think it's when you're an adult you look at it and you go, wow, that's terrifying, but as a child you're probably fine.
Really hope that never happens to me. Yeah.
I hope I never get sucked into a vortex into the land of Christmas. That sounds awful.
And then, of course, you've got the Home Alones, which are like...
The originals, I've not watched any of the new ones, but I loved the originals when I was a kid. That was my brother's hyperfixation when he was younger. And you could tell if he had...
Just preparing traps in the home.
Yeah. I was going to say, if for context, my brother only has the one working arm. If he had two working arms, we would have been Macaulay Culkin out of our house, because that was his... favorite. He used to build little traps for things, and you never knew if you were going to step on a mouse trap or whatever. But that was his jam as a kid, and I was just like, cool. And I still like it. I still think they hold up. It's weird that I'm now the same age as the mother. That I don't like that. I don't like the passage of time. But yeah.
Nah, I mean, like, I'm not sure what I'm mentally trying to prepare myself for A Castle for Christmas, like, again, because, like, I remember the first time I watched it and I was like, this is rough.
It's rough, but do you know what? I've watched worse. The accents are what gets me though. That's what's going to make me struggle with A Castle for Christmas is the whole it's a castle. It's not a fucking castle. It's a manor house. Yeah. Second of all,
I like there's so many bits in that film. Like I think particularly when it comes to the pub scenes and like the locals, it's all very like I don't know twee. Yeah, it's very like shortbread tinny. And that to me is like
the thing that annoyed me though is that I know a place like that in Inverness, near Inverness. My friend lives there, and literally there's just a knitting club in the pub. And I was like, you could not be any more of a fucking stereotype if you tried.
Yeah.
She's like, oh, it's fun. So,
but nah, I think like I don't tend to watch like. I mean, me and Jessica sometimes like pull up like the really shitty like Hallmark ones of that year. There was one that we watched and I can't remember it, but it was like the woman in it was a professional like store Christmas decorator. Like that was her thing. Like she decorates stores for Christmas. She's not like a visual merchandiser like all year round. Like her thing is decorating just for Christmas. And of course the guy didn't care about Christmas. And somehow they run into each other when he's at home and he's not got the decorations up. And he's always let his family down by not being super into Christmas. But the family this year are visiting him for Christmas, and it's clearly like Hallmark have like rented a house that's for sale. There is like nothing. there is nothing on. Yeah, there is nothing in it. There is there's nothing in it. And over the course of the film, she gets to run wild and like decorate the house. And then they go and do the whole choosing a Christmas tree and shit like that. And it's like, this is crap, but it's like.
I feel like Mothman's having flashbacks in the background because that's basically what's happening to us this year because we're hosting.
Oh, nice.
So,
smile through the pain. Smile through the pain.
It'll be good. No, it'll be good fun. I'm really looking forward to it. But it prompted me to paint my entire fucking house because I'm like, I need to, I destroyed the wall recently, so I have to repaint that. And I'm like, I might as well just do everything. So that's I'm turned into my mother because that's what my mother used to do. If we were hosting Christmas, she would paint everything. She also painted our whole house, including the exterior for my wedding. So that was I'm realizing I'm becoming my mother, and I'm okay with that.
Nice.
But yeah.
Sometimes
Mothman's like, it's fine. It's just immediate family. Yes, just 8 people.
Oh, good. Is that 8 people plus you?
No, 8 people including me plus 2 dogs. 2 dogs and a baby. Plus Holly Mob. But yeah, it's it'll be fine. It'll be good.
Yeah, no, that's decent. Me and Jessica are going to my mum and dad's this year, which is nice because I feel, to be honest, I think if anything, that's pulling together resources so we can actually all be heated in the one house.
Yeah, that's my mum was saying that. She's kind of like, I might just go to your godmother's because they've got the gas. The heater, the fireplace, and everything. So it's just like that seems fair.
But we're entering like huddle together for warmth levels of Christmas. Like I think today is particularly chilly in Scotland. Like it was snowing in Edinburgh yesterday.
I saw that, yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't like super heavy snow, but it was enough snow that it made your walk a little bit tougher, and it was a pain in the arse. But nah, like aside from that, it's just chilly now. It's like it's that kind of annoying cold though, where it's like it's not cold enough to like let's blast the heating like fuck. It's
a very different cold from what I've grown used to over here because we were negative 23 last week, 23 Celsius.
Negative 23 Celsius. Yeah, that's chilly. Yeah.
But it's a dry cold, whereas the cold in Scotland so much it gets into your bones because it's so wet. It's a damp cold, and it makes everything ache. Whereas here, you just your nose freezes when you breathe in. It's a slightly you can feel the air freezing in your lungs over here, but you're still
able to be dry with it, whereas in Scotland you're just perpetually soaking wet. So it's it's a different type of cold.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say like the cold here can like change your posture. Because like you say, how it gets into your bones. It's like you end up like walking really like upright, but sometimes in a unnatural way. So yeah, that's not very fun at the moment, and it means like because it teeters on the brink of being like it tends to be, we think it was -4 in Falkirk today, which like, you know, compared to your -20 odd, not quite the same, but it's like you're not putting the heating on full blast because you're kind of okay with it, but at the same time it has...
As long as your house is insulated, you're okay.
Yeah.
We're actually at 2 degrees Celsius today. You're colder than me.
Yeah, well...
Something's going wrong, global warming. But
I'm still going to be in a... I was thinking about the hoodie, actually. I was going to wear the hoodie, but then I was nah, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I'll turn the heating on. Yeah. We're all good. Wet cold sounds perfect. The dry shit's fucking up my asthma this year. Something awful. Yeah,
it does. Yeah, it makes your breathing a lot harder when it's the dry cold. But as someone who's had both, the wet cold fucks my joints. So I'm like, which one do I choose? Neither. I'm gonna go to Florida for the winter.
See, I would be interested to like try a dry cold, because I feel like I prefer dry heat as in I can survive dry heat way better than the tropical shit that we get. we
do not get dry heat in Minnesota. We get humidity here, like nothing else. We get humidity here in the summer, and then the winter's dry cold.
Oh, man.
So it's the worst of both.
You can't fucking win. Yeah, that sucks. No, that's yeah. I mean, like, to be honest, I think the majority of people here are just like, I'm not a massive fan of, like, I think like years in retail have like jaded me really fucking quickly. And I was speaking to Jessica about this earlier, and it was like, it took like 2 or 3 years of me in retail to really, like, I used to have great Christmases when I was growing up. I used to like really enjoy Christmas with my family. The moment retail came into that and I was working like Christmas Eve and Boxing Day and stuff, absolutely killed it. Made me jaded as fuck because of how people behave over this time of year as well. Like, people who are in shops and buying stuff, like, just if you're ever doing Christmas shopping, just be kind to every retail staff member that you meet, or food service person. Like, it's one of those things that, like, I'm working hard to get back into that festive cheer, but like, I do feel bad for everyone who has to.
It's hard. It's hard. I mean, I did food. I did a lot of customer facing roles back when I was in Scotland, and that and Easter and the January sales were a fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
And it was just, everyone was on their worst behaviour because everyone was grumpy, and I'm going, if you hate it that much, why are you doing it? Like, don't take it out on the people serving you your coffee either, because they're, you know, they're there for a job as well. But that was, we used to do places that went really, really big on like Christmas dinners and stuff like that. So it was always like a flip a coin if you're going to be working that day.
Yep.
And that really killed a lot of it for me. And I'm going, it's actually quite a privileged thing to have Christmas spirit in the sense of you actually get to enjoy the season, which I really I hate how commercialized it is, but it's been commercialized since before I was born.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think that's like seeing, like, me and Jessica were in, like, I've been in Edinburgh 2 days in a row. So I was there on Friday and I was there on Saturday. It's been like both barrels of a shotgun. But we were booked into like a restaurant for dinner on the Friday, and we were thinking, it's like, do we go for a wander in the Christmas markets after the meal? And then the moment we finished the meal, we looked at the Christmas markets and went, no, hell no, that's it. It's awful. And then Saturday was so busy in Edinburgh that in Princes Street there was no phone service. Because, like, there was no signal, but like, as in, like, you had your 4G or whatever on your phone, but like, you could not load anything on the internet whatsoever because there was just so many people. And it's
a new one.
Yeah, like, it happens occasionally, and to be honest, it's only ever happened to me in like massive, like, you know, when you're like, if you've ever been to like a concert at like a stadium, and you try and load something on your phone afterwards, and it's like the concentration of people, your phone just doesn't pick up.
It used to happen all the time at the SCCC, and it was you'd be trying to get a taxi or something, and your phone just would not work.
yeah. So it was like that yesterday, and I don't mind the look of the Christmas markets, but I think you're right when it says there's a degree of privilege that comes from like being able to enjoy the season and go to all the festive bits. I mean, I tweeted earlier this month, it's like, do people actually like relax in December? Because I never find it relaxing until Christmas Day, and then those like twilight like days between Christmas and New Year, you know?
I mean, there's a big in the idea of the winter solstice. December's not what I keep seeing it everywhere on Instagram. Is all these people saying December is the time of month when you're supposed to be in your house, not working, just survive, hibernating with the warmth and the light and everything else. But we don't get to do that anymore. And obviously that's the way things have changed. We don't live with the seasons the way we used to. But it's a very kind of, even like the commercialism between when I was a child and what it is now seems a lot more rampant. And also the level of perfection expected from it as well. Like I was talking to Mothman because I was in bits the other night because of Instagram. Instagram kept showing me people's dogs who'd passed away, and I was just howling. I couldn't stop myself crying. But in between that, it was everybody's perfect Christmas decor.
Oh, fuck.
And it was like the most heinous mindfuck that it was just like, here's a roller coaster of emotions, happy, sad, and it was. But even that, I'm like, how much of that is just, how much are you just decorating your house for the gram, and how much of it is the latest thing that you can get for your house? I'm going, well, I'm going to be using the Christmas tree that I've had for 10 years. That I'm not buying a new one. And the only reason we have a different Christmas tree is because our basement flooded. That's it. Otherwise, we'd still have all the stuff that we moved into this house with. But my parents have been using the same tree for, how old am I? 36? 36. So my parents' tree is about 40 years old.
Yeah.
They've been using that same plastic tree, and I'm going, they don't need a new one. But my mum keeps saying to me, she's like, maybe I should get a new tree. And I'm like, why? Your one's perfect. The lights still work somehow.
If it still works and it's still got all of its like leaves and it's not looking bare, just fucking.
But every time she goes into John Lewis's or
new Christmas tree, buy a new Christmas tree,
buy a new Christmas tree, buy this, buy that, and she's like, do you know what she does? She doesn't buy for her. She buys it for me. My mother's the crazy person that sends me glass baubles in the mail.
Oh fuck!
To
From
America.
Scotland. Oh fuck!
And they survive because she uses like an entire thing of like bubble wrap, and it's like the ornament's like this size and the package is this size. But that's how my mother gets into it. She rationalizes it as, well, I'm sending it to my daughter, so that's okay. I'm not buying it for me; it's for somebody else. And I'm like, you don't need to buy me any of it.
See, one thing that I would say is kind of like maybe grown and very marketed towards like that kind of perfect Christmas, like Instagram, but. It's now encouraged to have like multiple Christmas trees in different rooms.
Yeah.
Like for me, and it will remain forever. It is one tree, like one tree. Like I don't mind the mini ones that have like the kind of LEDs, like the lamp, like the lamps on the end, like the actual trees that are kind of lamps themselves. But like people are decorating 2 Christmas trees, sometimes 3 Christmas trees in different areas of their house, and it's like. I get it.
I don't know how they have the space. Like, I barely have the space for the one that I have. And I'm like, yeah, it would be nice, but, there's other ways you can decorate the rest of your house for Christmas if you really want. It doesn't need to be a tree. But yeah, there's a lassie I follow on Instagram because she does really good IKEA hacks, and I'm all about a good IKEA hack. She has a Christmas tree in her kitchen, her living room, her bathroom, her bedroom, and the children's room.
Why the bathroom?
It's a little tiny one, but it's like a living one that just sits in there, and she'll eventually plant it at the end of the Christmas season, I suppose.
If your aim's good, you can just water it every occasionally.
Oh no!
Nah, like I have seen that. Like I quite like a kind of traditional like Christmas tree, like the ones that are like made to look green. I can't get behind the super white ones. It's like why
it reminds me of the ones that my mum and dad in the 50s growing up. It was when the aluminium or aluminum if you're American, those Christmas trees became a thing because they were very space age, and that was they thought everyone's Christmas trees would look. So it reminds me a little bit of those. And my mum and dad had that original tree again for quite a long time until they got rid of it. But it looks dated to me a wee bit.
Yeah.
I think it depends on how you decorate it as well. But to me, it always just reminds me of like the photos of like my granny with her like space age aluminium Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Which is nothing wrong with that, but in my mind I'm just going, it's a wee old Scottish granny thing in my head. But that's obviously just the association I have with it. I'm sure some people make them look lovely, but
I did see and like a kind of game changer, and I was kind of thinking there's definitely some merit to doing this, but I saw someone who, instead of like taking apart their Christmas tree and putting it up the loft, they like spent like 3 rolls of cling film.
I've seen that.
And I think that's like I don't think it would work for the tree that me and Jessica have, but like I do think it's kind of genius, and I wouldn't mind trying it like once, like just to see if it survives. Yeah, I mean, like I'd probably have to like not decorate it, but like at that point, what's the point in even cling filming it? Because like me and Jessica, we have special baubles that need, like we have expendable baubles, and then we have like the special baubles that we want to look after.
Same.
Which is
I can't really. I couldn't cling film my tree or saran wrap if you're in the US. I couldn't do that because my tree is entirely glitter, and it would peel everything off. So my tree is a hollow glitter tree, so it's got holographic glitter on it, and I've had it for 7 years, 8 years. Do you remember?
Mothman's sitting there like too long.
Do you remember when we got the tree 8 years ago? The Christmas tree. It was when we first moved in, so it's probably about 8 years, yeah.
8 years. Right.
And we bought it actually because someone tried to break into the house with me inside of it. So the first thing I did was, Mothman's like, what do you want to do? What do you want to be? How can I make this happen? I was like, I want a Christmas tree, because our other Christmas tree got wrecked. So that was what we did. We went and got a Christmas tree, and we got the glitteriest Christmas tree possible just to cheer me up. That
was a good recovery, Mothman. I like that. Saved the day.
Did you get the tree before or after the Christmas elf? We've had Legolas for a long time. He was actually in Mothman's family before that, so we've had Legolas for... Legolas is probably about 20 years old at this point. He's as old as the films. Because if you completely have no idea what this is, we have a life-size cutout cardboard thing of Orlando Bloom as Legolas, and he gets dressed up every Christmas. We don't do elf on the shelf, we do elf glaring at you from the corner. So that's what we have. If we move to the UK, we're going to have to book him a flight on a plane so we don't have to fold him over. But that's what he gets his Santa hat and his lights on as well for the Christmas season.
Weird thing is, I have a cardboard cutout of Aragorn in my family's house. I feel like this was just the thing. And like one of the things that my dad did for my Christmas one year was like, because I did fencing when I was younger, one of the things that my dad did, like I wanted to be able to like practice at home, as well as like go to the like the club that I attended. And one of the ways that I could practice was, what he did was he got really, really thick like insulation and like floor underlay, and he created like the body of basically a target, like a target area. So it was like, like the full torso and legs and stuff, and I could practice. But like he made it into an urukai, so it had an urukai's face on it. It had lurts from...
Rad as hell.
Oh, it was fucking, it was incredible. I'm gonna see if I'll see if I can find a photo of it for you, because it was like it was a good practice dummy that my dad spent a good wee while crafting. But yeah, it was we used to decorate him for Christmas as well. That was the link to this conversation.
Yes. Do you know what? We need someone that has a Gimli, and we're sorted.
Yeah, exactly. We'll form the trio. Actually,
the trio.
I've realised that that's actually something that I want to do over like the Christmas like downtime period. I'm gonna rewatch like the trilogy. One thing that I haven't looked at yet though, and I'm not sure if you've done it, Joy, have you ever watched the Hobbit extended editions? And are they good?
I have not watched the extended because I did not enjoy
I did enjoy the normal ones, yeah. The Hobbit wasn't good.
It wasn't as good. It was fine, but it wasn't as good. So I know I haven't, and I didn't enjoy the other ones. Probably not. But I will watch the extended original trilogy. I watch that at least twice a year.
Yeah, there's there's got to be a like I feel like the original trilogy will be like timeless. Like the music's amazing, all of the acting's just fucking superb. The Hobbit was just so green screen. It
was very, very green screen, which I think took away from it, and also just kind of, I don't know, it fell flat in numerous places for me, which I never had happen. You know, I can perfectly rewatch, you know, the Fellowship of the Ring and everything, and I can be fine. I will watch the whole thing and still be fully invested in it. If I put The Hobbit on, it's background noise.
Yeah,
and I don't quite know why. It doesn't have the same feel to it. Green screen could be a part of it. Obviously, there's some things that they can't do in reality, but like, just compared to the stuff like the original trilogy, there was so much like attention to detail in the real world.
Which is actually a really, really good link to Andor.
It is, yes. Because
I suppose there will be some minor spoilers for Andor in this section, including for yourself if you've not seen the last couple of episodes. You have 4 episodes left, you said?
I've got 4 episodes left, and I watched the last 30 minutes of the last one and almost started crying. So that was fun. Just absolutely bawling just before this stream, but yeah,
good.
It's fine because I won't remember it, so when I go back and watch it, I'll just cry all over again.
Excellent.
But yeah,
but like, so what's been your take on Andor? Having like, was it this week you started watching it?
Last night.
Oh, yes,
literally last night. So you're coming to me fresh with this new fixation. For anyone's not aware, Star Wars was my first fandom. I fell into it head first at the age of 12. And never fully came out. I just don't really engage with the fandom on Tumblr because it's toxic.
You're not a Reylo stan? What the fuck is that?
I don't. We're not even going to get into that.
Yep.
But there was a lot about Andor to recommend it. And it's been pissing me off because the TV stuff has been so much better than the films have been.
Right?
So much better.
Right.
And you know why? It's because they've got writers who are forced to storyboard because you can't fucking wing 12 episodes. You can, I mean, you can, but it won't work. But the difference in production and writing and coherency is staggering. So as someone who's been really someone who's been diehard Star Wars since they were a kid, the new movies were soul destroying for me. I will never rewatch them.
I would argue that Andor is probably the best post-Disney Star Wars thing out there. That's probably a bold statement, maybe, but I mean, to me,
so far,
I would say it's breathed way more life into like Star Wars again. I think it achieves quite a lot that some of the Disney content dances round, but I actually think it beats The Mandalorian as well. And I didn't mind The Mandalorian.
It hits different beats for me. So The Mandalorian is the post build up from the Star Wars that we know. It's a different galaxy. It's more leaning towards a sort of almost like family comedy almost in places.
Yeah, I would say so.
Whereas Andor is a lot more, this is grim. The build up to war. Yeah. This is the build up to the original trilogy. This is, the grim reality of what causes these things to happen. And it's, it's characters that you kind of know from the original trilogy. And if the only decent, it's got the cast from it's the lead up to Rogue One.
Yeah.
And I would argue that Rogue One is the only good Disney Star Wars movie.
Yes, I would agree.
I do. It's so it causes me pain because I was such a major Star Wars fangirl, and I didn't even see the last one, the Rise of Skywalker. Yeah. I didn't even go see it. Yeah. I was just so despondent with the first two. I was like,
you should watch it just to inflict pain on yourself, because like I dragged myself to watch the Rise of Skywalker, and I'm not sure if I saw it I was about to say the theater, but
the theater.
I'm not sure if I went to see it in the cinema. I'm trying to remember, but like it was just not good. Like the wasted potential of it is the thing that annoys me the most.
Yeah, I remember coming out of the first one, whatever that was, the Force, whatever it was. A Force Awakens, or was that the game, or was that the name of the thing? I can't remember.
No, the Force Awakens was the first one of the new trilogy.
It shows you how little I care that I've kind of blanked on the names, because I could tell you all of the expanded universe books in order at one point. So that's the level of fangirl I was.
Yeah.
And I watched that, and I sat there in the cinema, and I went in like Mothman was fully just like, this is going to be garbage, it's Disney, and I was like, no, it could be good because they've got like a Disney budget, and I just sat there and I just deflated. We drove home in silence. It was like so bad that I was just sitting in the car, just like, don't talk to me. I don't want to talk about it. Like it was so bad. And I remember coming on Tumblr, and I tried to complain about it, and some people were like, no, but it's perfect. And I'm like, did we watch the same thing? Yeah. Like, no shade to anyone in the chat if you enjoyed it. Like, absolutely no shade if you enjoyed it. But to me, it was just so lackluster compared to the experiences I'd had before with Star Wars. Because Star Wars is silly fun. It's silly fun that has good, poignant moments. And it felt very... it fell short, and it just got worse from there, because they wouldn't let they didn't keep the same writers, they didn't have any storyboarding mapped out. If you're planning a fucking trilogy, which they were, before you start filming the first one, you plan the fucking trilogy, and you make sure they're coherent. But that's just basic storytelling 101. And
to be fair, as someone who's like, I'm definitely on the Last Jedi wasn't a good film side, but not for the space racists that really hated the fact that there was so much shit directed at that film just in general. But like I
felt genuinely so bad. I
felt terrible for Finn's fucking
John Boyega.
John Boyega's character was butchered.
Yeah, and he did, and it was because the thing that bugged the shit out of me was they did the same with Rose's character. It was they bowed to the racists and they rewrote things.
Yep.
And I'm like, you fucksticks, stand behind the people that you've hired. Stand behind your actors. You're Disney. You can fucking do that.
And also, you can't create like a cohesive trilogy based on fan reaction each time you release a film, because it leads to that, and it's like, people end up getting binned and rewritten and all the rest of it. I didn't understand, right? And like, to some extent I can see why they decided single Jedi like protagonist. They wanted Rey to take front and center on the Jedi aspect of that. Why couldn't they have just made John Boyega a Jedi as well? Like, I feel like by not making him a Jedi who was like Force sensitive, like, I feel like that would have been a perfect dynamic, because you could have had like one being lured by the dark side, and you could have had a bit of a thing there, but like John Boyega's character was like just relegated to being like quippy sidekick, which...
I actually have on my AO3, it's called Let the Wookiee Win, and it was a small throwaway comment. It was a throwaway ficlet that I did, and in the notes at the end I have a fucking essay about how Finn, not Poe, is the Han Solo stand-in for our generation, because Han Solo, for anyone who's unaware, I don't know how much they've changed it, because I never saw the Han Solo movie either, because that looked garbage as well. But in the books, in the original canons, Han Solo was an Imperial soldier who, basically, he was being told to whip slaves. He was being told to harm Chewbacca and a bunch of other people, and he turned on them and said, "No, fuck you! I'm not. These are not orders I'm willing to follow." He was willing to follow orders to get to fly, to get off of his home planet Corellia. But when it came down to, no, you got to put the boot in and oppress people, he said no.
Yeah.
And he became a fugitive after that point, and he runs away from the Empire with a freed slave, and they basically live together. And I'm like, do you
not know how Han Solo got his name? Did you know? Was that a burning question that you really wanted to know, Joy?
Tell me.
So Han Solo, when he signs up for the Imperial Flight Academy or the military, he's asked where's he from? What's his surname? And he goes like, are you with anyone? And he goes, no. And it's like, Han Solo, and just stamps his like. I think there's two things about the Han Solo film that I fucking despise. One, I didn't want to know how Han Solo got the name Han Solo. And the second one, and I'm using this term correctly here for anyone who's watched my Republic Commando video, they made the Imperial March diegetic in the universe. Like, as in, they play the Imperial March over like a tannoy.
They've always done that.
Have they?
Yeah, in the original, the radio plays from 1977, the Empire uses the Imperial March as propaganda.
Fuck your radio plays. No, you're not getting that. Fuck that.
They're canon. The radio plays are considered canon. They're LucasArts canon. But that's what they used to do. They used to do the Imperial March over the tannoids at their recruiting centres. Because in the novelization as well. You had Luke Skywalker was trying to sign up for the Imperial Academy, and he was listening to the song. He's heard the song so many times that he's whistling it under his breath as the Imperial March. So I'm sorry to break that to you.
Oh no, it's okay. It's completely destroyed my fucking soul. That makes me more depressed actually. But yeah, like the Han Solo film was meh.
I mean, the fact that in the old expanded universe, Solo was just a Corellian name. There's literally there are other if you read any of the old, I don't even know if they're considered canon anymore, but a lot of the old novels, you had other Imperial families named Solo. Solos used to be like an actual on Corellia. They had House Corellian, almost like Alderaan, but then it got corrupt, so it's almost like a gang lord name is Solo.
Yeah, right. So, well, no, you're wrong. I'm afraid. I might not have my radio knowledge, but Han gets his last name Solo from Drod Mundrin. Immediately after losing Kira, Han entered the area and tried to enlist in the Imperial Navy. When asked what his last name was, Han responded that he did not have a people and was alone. Due to this, he was assigned the name Solo by recruitment officer Drod Mundrin.
That's some Game of Thrones bullshit where they call him Jon Snow. What was the purpose of that?
Because he's from a wintry land. It's just terrible.
He's from fucking Star Wars Vegas. He's not from Winterland. He's from Nevada.
but I mean, I think it's interesting because, like, from the Han Solo film, you also have this, like, this specific bit at the end where you have the rebels. Like, you have rebels, like, kind of, that beginning aspect, like the idea is that there is kind of like funding for a cause here, and there's movement. Even if Han Solo isn't on board with the rebels yet, he's obviously not a big fan of the Empire. And I'm wondering if you like. I'm not saying that Han Solo directly fed into the setting of Andor, but like I think. You take elements of like Disney, Star Wars that are not the Jedi trilogies and not surrounding Skywalkers, and they kind of helped like feed in to what like Andor is. Because like one word I would describe Andor is like it's so well grounded. in comparison to like all the other Star Wars kind of media, because like I feel like the Mandalorian can't get away from having like a cameo of Luke Skywalker. And like like Mark Hamill appearing, and like there's still obviously there's Grogu, the wee Yoda boy, and then like there's like all the Force, and they cannot get away from that. Whereas I feel like what Andor does is it completely drops that, because it's almost quite nice to think that there's a get like the Jedi stuff that we've been so used to like seeing for like all of the Star Wars content. Like, there's very few. Like, I mean, I don't know what the actual population of the Star Wars universe is, or any of the actual planets, but like I imagine Jedi are like, I mean, they probably seem like fucking like guardian angel type.
I mean,
to come across
wizards.
One. Yeah, like
they're space wizards.
But like to actually come across one, it must be like a fucking 1 in a billion chance. Or I don't know. Like I don't know what the rate. Like,
it depends on which canon you go with. Because if you're going with current canon, then they're very, very rare because they've all just been wiped out essentially.
Well, yeah.
But if you're going further and further back, there was different planets had different types of Force sensitives, and they weren't all Jedi. Like you had the Night Sisters, were the Force sensitive witches. And you also had other planets that had their own kind of monk class almost, and they weren't necessarily Jedi, but then the Jedi kind of came along. We're like, oh no, we're the one true way to do this.
Yeah, we're the Force sensitive folk. Yeah, I think like I mean like I think what's really nice about Andor is how well grounded it is from a like. Looking at all of the episodes in the series, and I know you've still got like a couple left, but I feel like it does a lot more to make Star Wars feel like a universe that someone can exist in. And I know that we're seeing it from the perspective of like people who are going to work every day, like you see in like the planet that they kind of start on. I'm not going to go into knowing all the planets' names. That's not what I watch Star Wars for. I know all of the planets from like Knights of the Old Republic. The new stuff I can kind of like give or take, but like the mining planet that they go and they pick their gloves off the rack every single day.
It's really working class. It's very recognized. Really it's very recognizable. It's not here's your space wizard. It's very much when the Skywalkers are all fucking up the rest of the universe, there's still people there that have to go to the mines and stuff like that. It's like local family causing disaster like millions of light years away. Meanwhile, I still have to go down into this moon and shovel, rock dust.
But like, I think that's what's quite nice about like, you're seeing it from like, I think the Empire actually comes across like, I don't want to say it comes across well. It obviously doesn't come across well, but it's like really well written how the Empire actually like goes about stuff, because it's like a kind of third party security firm at the start. And then gradually as the series progresses, you've got like the Empire assuming direct control of the policing of the planet and stuff like that. So the security forces that were previously there kind of like fade into the background. And I find that quite good because you get like a really good glimpse into almost like the bureaucratic nightmare that is it's a
slow creep of fascism, and it's done really well to show you how it goes from 1 minute you have your local law enforcement, the next minute they're gone. Yeah. And your local law enforcement could be corrupt as well, which we do see in this. Yeah. But it's not as bad as what comes after that if you don't do something about it. And it was really well done, I thought. Like, it was very kind of like you have the people that are kind of going, nah, you're exaggerating, nah, it's fine. Then meanwhile, you've got other people going, I've seen this happen before, this is not good, this is bad. And then it just all of a sudden, the reality of it hits. And they realize they're staring down, this is about to be 20 years of fascism that's about to happen.
I think one of the things that we get a really good glimpse of is like the kind of like just following orders kind of level of the Empire. It's like you see all these kind of like bumpkin admin people for the Empire that are like obviously enabling all of the shit that the Empire do to like local populations and everything, but they're like sitting at desks and they're like
noodles,
they're kind of bumbling, and the guy's eating his blue noodles, and it's like, oh yeah, can you get me data on this local population because I'm gonna go and fucking like search everyone, you know? And these people are kind of like willingly doing it, and it look, they're normal as well, you know, like they're normal people.
And sure, pal going to their job doing data research.
Yeah.
What do you do with the Empire? Oh, you know, I just do data research.
Yeah.
You know?
Like, also like the levels of people that you see in the Empire as well. Like you see, like you've got the woman who's like trying to climb the ranks of like the intelligence service. And then you've got the I think his name's Cyril or something like that. The guy who's like, he's like kind of young fascist. He looks like he's straight out of like the kind of far right Republican Party.
He threw me for a loop because he is Francis Poldark from the Poldark series. So I was staring at the television set for ages,
Right.
just going, "Who the fuck are? I know you from somewhere." And he's the young, feckless cousin in the period drama Poldark, and I was just like, you don't look like, you look almost like an android. You look like that. What's his
He
face?
does.
From, the human or whatever it's called.
Yes.
Doesn't look real, and it's
That
so
is
surreal because it's very animated in the Poldark. Yeah.
Right. He does. Like, that's a really good way to describe it. He looks like an android. He's got that kind of like
Plastic face.
Yeah, like kind of chiseled plastic face. You're right. Really sorry if the actor's watching. But I think like his character's really good because like
Yes,
you can tell he's like he started a job and he's just gotten like really fucking into it. Like
he wants to advance as far as he can within the job that he has, and then in doing so, he enables a fascist takeover of the place where he was working. And you can see
but wants to go even further because then his own ego at like a defeat gets in the way, to the point where it's like he's not really supporting the Empire as much as he is
his own advancement.
And I think that also speaks to the woman who's like trying to climb the ranks as well. I feel like she just wants to be really, really good at her job.
She wants recognition for being smart.
Yeah,
that's what she wants. She wants to be recognized as an equal, which I there's a really good talking point for how conservative women enable, you know, white supremacy and all. You know, it's a really good, you know, especially if they continue on the route where they are, where the empire becomes male dominated, because that was a big thing in the you know, the original trilogy is what there was no women in positions of power. It was all men, and you're going, well, that's basically how it works, because you get the women in at a certain level, these conservative alt-right fascist women, and they uphold it, and then they're angry the whole time that they're also being oppressed, and you're going, well, yes, because you were enabling the system. But you are happy to have what level of power you can get. Like there are women who will actively, you know, they will deep throat the boot if it means that they can put the boot on someone else. And she's a very good character for that. She just wants to be recognised as smart. She wants to be recognised as better than her peers. And she gets it, but it's bad because she's enabling the rise of the thing that will eventually get rid of her. You know?
No, that's like, yeah, exactly. I'd be interested. So it's a 24-part series. I think this was like, I'm not sure if they're terming this as a half season or whether they're...
I think it is, yeah.
Yeah. So like we've got another 12 episodes, and like I'd be interested to see if they would actually touch on that, because unless they're going to kind of like try and retcon it and say that, you know, there was women around the table on the Death Star, which they might do, but it would be interesting to...
We just get another released version of A New Hope, and it's just women's CGI.
It's actually just her. It's the one woman from the intelligence of
guys. She climbed that corporate ladder.
Nailed it.
And pulled it up behind her so no one else could follow her.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I like about Andor as well is how I feel like we're getting to know the depth of the universe. Like, we were previously seeing it from a very, like, galactic space battle, like, side of it. Whereas, like, I've quite liked the Mon Mothma.
Yes.
Like I've really enjoyed learning the kind of, like, this is the senator's house. This is, like, what the senators who still were trying to do the right thing, but also were, like, the way she talks. Oh yeah, the emperor. I made a speech to the emperor and got booed. That kind of thing. While also trying to, I actually really like that. They've kind of tied her into, like, the funding of the early movement of the rebels. I don't think I ever expected to see that, if you get me. Like, when I watched the originals as a kid, I was like, I'm going to learn about her backstory one day, but it's been quite good.
But she's been fascinating, and she's always been a character that's been in the original trilogies, she was, the other woman in Star Wars who you see for 30 seconds. And, and then the prequels were kind of like, she's friends with Padme and Bail Organa, and, like, she's, she's a central part of Leia's upbringing. And then in this one, you actually see, well, how do you do that? How do you become one of the rebel leaders during the rise of fascism? You can't just, I suppose you could just step away from your life of privilege, but she's trying to hedge her bets and also maintain things whilst, the whole, for everyone who's not seen it yet, she's been cut off from her family funds. She can't just move money around like she used to, because she used to give money to her own private stuff. And if she's seen giving too much money to these things, it's you're not supporting the empire. You're supporting these fringe movements.
She needs to be really careful about how she, like, launders the charity money and foundation money and all that. Like, because I think, like, there is a banking world, isn't there? There's the banking planet, and
it's where she's from. It's from Chandra, I think it's called, and that's like the place where everyone goes to bank, I guess. But it's kind of like the financial hub of the universe. And she's got a childhood friend who's a banker, and she's able to use that connection to be like, because he starts mouthing off like, I don't think, it's like, this isn't for me, you and your politics. He's like, I wouldn't agree with what you're doing anymore. And she takes him aside and she's like, I don't agree with you either. Fucking help me. Like, just absolutely just like, keep smiling. And it was a really good political intrigue, which we don't often get in Star Wars. Often Star Wars is very, it does it well. The action-packed scenes are very, very well done, but often the actual politics is neglected. So the politics a lot of the time is this stark, in the
very, very blunt.
You have this is obviously evil versus I'm obviously the good character, and then but you actually have Mon Mothma who's trying to navigate through this political intrigue world, and she's very good at it. The levels of subterfuge and, like, lying that she's capable of, you're like, that's how you become a rebel alliance leader, and you have to lie through your fucking teeth.
I love how I love Stellan Skarsgård's character. I think like that's such a good, like, it's funny how he constantly pushes the line a little bit for Mon Mothma, which does cause her a bit of hassle, but like he like is like, well, you agreed, like this is the level of political kind of and rebellious operation that we're gonna have to get to. Like, you've kind of signed up for this.
It's almost like she's in denial that the violence needs to happen until it does. She almost as if she thinks she's funding relief all the time, and the people on the ground are going, "We need guns." We're not going to get anywhere. It's not enough to have med packs and food. This is becoming a war, and I don't think she sees that at first. And then towards the end of it, she's like, "No, this is war." And it's very, very good. It's good.
I'm wondering, right, and like one character that I'm desperate to know the kind of dynamics of a bit more, and it's touched on a little bit in Andor, but like Saw Gerrera is like a really good character to talk about. Like, they do address it a wee bit where it's like the rebellion is very fractured at the moment, and you've got like rebellion groups fighting each other.
The infighting, it's
like
all
the
the
infighting
infighting
is kind of, it's, I don't want to say it's good to see, but it's like, it's quite interesting to learn about, because there's definitely parallels with the modern world of how that's happened in the past.
Well, you have these vying forces who all want their things to be done their way, because they've all got conflicting desires and needs, which is valid. But unless you unify against literal fascism, you're not going to get anywhere. You're just spinning your wheels, and the alt-right is going to keep going. The space alt-right, just so that we're clear, they're keeping to go. Oh yeah, well yeah, they're going to keep giving you reasons to fight each other rather than to fight you. And that is the parallels that we see in our own world, is that kind of like, oh yeah, well, we're gonna here's all the infighting in the queer community. Queer is actually a slur, or so and so is a predator, and you're like, do you not realize this is all part of their plan so that they can just keep stripping away rights? We're too busy fighting each other to actually fight them. Yeah. And that really came across really well in Andor. It was the whole, like, well, who are you to fight for us? And I fight for everybody. It's that kind of, I'm here for the big show, not for the small
not
things.
For the petty squabbles.
Yeah.
I mean, like, Jason, have you seen the episode with the prison on it?
I think I started it and then I skipped ahead to the last episode. So I've seen bits of it. But you can talk. I don't care if it's spoiled. I'm one of the people that's quite happy to be spoiled. If you're not, you just can leave. But I don't care if it's spoilers.
There's brilliant, like, there's a brilliant episode that takes place all in the prison that Andor ends up in, and it's got Andy Serkis in it. Who's playing one of the, like, to give you the lowdown of how the prison operates, it's like it's got these work crews, and Andy Serkis's character's like a work crew leader, which is not a prison guard. He's a prisoner, but he's like in charge of all of the crews that are working on, like, assembling stuff, and it's basically slave labor, and the idea is that there's prisoners, and over the course of the episode you learn about how the prison operates. When they first get there, all of the floors are electrified, so they can they can turn it on at any moment and basically fry the prisoners. Not like they can do it in a harmful way, but I think they can also do it to straight up kill them. And you see evidence of that where, like, people who are, like, struggling mentally with being imprisoned, they have these kind of dormitories where there's like a line right down the middle. Like, there's obviously the walking path right down the middle, which is electrified at night, so no one can, like, get up and walk around. And they all have their own little, like, pod bays where they go and sleep. And, like, sometimes during the night, someone just has had enough and decides to, like, step out. And, like, it's quite a big thing, and it does happen once or twice in the episode. And but they then probably stage, like, yeah, you can always get behind, like, a really good, like, prison break when it's like when it's like against the Empire as well. Like, you can really fucking get behind it. It's a, like, really, really good episode. But I think there's, like, a couple of things in it that really touches on just how, like, this is how the Empire functions. So, like, what they learn is that, like, people who are getting freed are actually just getting transferred to another prison. So, like, that's how it works. So it's like people who finish their sentence don't actually get released back into the universe. They instead get transferred to another Imperial prison as a new prisoner, and then they just continue working. And that's how it worked. And, like, you learn over the course of the episode that there was a guy who finished the sentence, got left, but got transferred back to the place that he was from, and everyone in the prison then kind of learns that that's how it's working. So everyone thinks that people have been getting freed. The reality is not the case, and that's what kind of switches Andy Serkis's character from being collaborator adjacent to, fuck, we need to do a prison break and get out of here.
But it's the idea that if you do your time and you behave well, you will get out. And I think that's a lot of people think that way about things like that.
But ultimately, you're just put from one institution into another. Even in this world, a lot of people end up, they can't handle the outside world because they've been so institutionalized by
and that's
their time.
And that's why reoffending rates are so high, is because the only way that someone can actually operate is within that system, because that's all they know. But it's a really good episode. Like I'm looking forward to hearing your kind of like your takes on it, because it is. It's
really the Discord thing at 3 a.m. your time, and you going, what the fuck?
It's really well done, and I think like I love how they spend a full episode on it, because I just think it's like it's so nicely contained, and I think that's one thing that the writers have done really well in Andor so far, has been like each episode is showing you like a slice of what, like, I mean, there was a full episode spent where it was like the team, the team that went and sabotaged the stuff and stole the money. They're like the first kind of heist that they did. Like that was a full episode dedicated to that, and it was very grounded. Like the characters that were involved there, they were all quite unique, but they all also didn't really know each other, and there was the conflict of like, oh, we don't add another person to the team so late in the game, that sort of stuff. But
there's always a drive that I like about it from a story aspect, is that there's always a good driving force at the start, and it gets resolved within that episode, so you don't have to binge the whole series all at once to find out what happens to XYZ character. And I really like that. I like things that are it's a little bit more like the old Doctor Who's, where everything was one and done in the episodes, and you didn't, you could binge if you wanted to, but you don't need to, because you're not left on a continual cliffhanger, which is what a lot of modern television does now, is that every episode is a cliffhanger.
Well, that was like, for me, that was always the biggest flaw of things like The Walking Dead, where like it was just constant cliffhangers, where like a monster of the week with a slight like there is a sweet spot between monster of the week or issue of the week and an overarching plot, and I think the writers have kind of nailed it on that side. One of the other things that I really like, and I think it's where I think Andor's better than the Obi-Wan series, was that I feel like obviously the focus was on Obi-Wan, and so we saw a lot of like Obi-Wan's like character, but I feel like in Andor the perspective is always like ground level. I know that sounds silly, but like I feel like there's a lot of real looking locations in it. Like I know that real is probably a bit of a stretch, but like you can imagine, like, see on Coruscant, for example, there's an episode that has one of the guys from the security bureau. He goes up like a lift and he goes into like the underbelly of Coruscant. He's down a couple of levels. He's not in the nice sunny top of Coruscant. He's like down in the kind of gritty bit, and it's like, I've walked that shitty alleyway in Glasgow, like I've you know what I mean?
It's going from the nice end of the West End in Glasgow to, we're in the shit part now. That's the kind of, it's the area when you suddenly realise you need to be holding your keys between your fingers. So you go from these beautiful old terrace houses to, this is the rough part of town. And it was a very real transitional shift.
Yeah. Like even on the first the first planet with all the different like alleyways and stuff, it's like those are tangible locations that, like,
it feels lived in.
Yeah, it feels lived in, and I feel like we're even if you think about like the prequel films, how many prequel films had like this very CGI'd kind of like opening like shot, very wide, very like,
fantastical.
Very fantastical, but to the point where it's like, even when it gets into what the real sets were, like non-green screen, you're kind of like, this is still a little bit green screen. Whereas I feel
it's too perfect. There's a lot of stuff that I always found was too perfect. Like, even like there was a scene where they were walking through the streets of Naboo, and I'm like, it's very, you can make the argument, well, yes, this is how Naboo is. It's always very kind of nice and well groomed. And I'm like, even the nicest, most well groomed parts of, like, say, London, you turn around and there's, a bit of graffiti somewhere. There's signs of life somewhere. There's a trash can. There's, there's stuff. Whereas it always felt a little bit too
pristine.
pristine. They didn't, and that was the thing that I loved about the original trilogy, was that the Millennium Falcon was all big clunky buttons, and you could imagine, everything's falling apart. And although you didn't get to see too much of the world because it wasn't that. It was a space western cowboy thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of it was done with painting and puppets, and that made it feel more real while still being otherworldly. Whereas I feel like with CGI stuff, you lose some of that sense of realness and the idea that you can relate to it.
So this is where I thought maybe this kind of like loops into the Lord of the Rings versus the Hobbit conversation we were having, right? In terms of realness. But I think in Andor, one thing, and we talked about it earlier with like the guy in the office eating the noodles, there is a lot of like sensory stuff throughout the entire like series, so like all of the 12 episodes, like, whether it was like they're always drinking something or they're eating something. Like I feel like the guys at the campsite, when they were doing that heist, they were like sharing that weird milk. You have the boy Cyril, who's like constantly eating cereal at his mum's house. Like I feel like there's lots of that, and there's also, you get like a lot of close-ups of like the buttons and like people searching the database, and like I feel like it's very like in a way that sometimes the other Disney films and even the prequels didn't do. Like I feel like there's a lot more of like a physical interaction with the world.
It's kind of like The Office lately. It's kind of like that level of the interaction you're having with their work, the things that literally at one point you're seeing a guy shoving blue noodles into his face, the next minute you're cutting to a woman who's slouched over her comms and she's got a drink with a straw in it. That could literally be your pal Debbie down the next cubicle over, sitting with her iced coffee. Whereas all the other ones, there was no kind of emphasis on food, or if it was very kind of, the only one I can really think of is in the prequels was Anakin floating that peach through the air to cut it, and that wasn't even really about food. It was about showing off the CGI. Yeah,
and showing off that he can use the Force. And hey, Padme, fuck me with this pear.
I can float a peach.
Was that a peach or was that a pear? I thought it was a pear, but
I don't remember.
It was a piece of fruit.
The thing is, though, if they'd actually focused on what it was, I probably would remember, but that wasn't what the focus was on. The focus was on, look how powerful this person is.
I don't like sand.
I don't like sand. It gets everywhere.
But I do think that we are like Andor's, like, and you'll remember from The Last Jedi, like Luke drinking the blue milk.
Yes.
Whereas I feel like in this, we've seen like, blue noodles and stuff, and it's just seemed a lot more like when people saw Luke drinking blue milk, we're like, that's not something, that's odd.
And the thing is, blue milk was in the originals as well.
Yeah, I know.
Have the meal when he sits down with his aunt and uncle, he has blue bantha milk. It's just the fact that in the Last Jedi, it was done for shock value. He's literally just squirting it from the animal and drinking it. And it was played for almost laughs and to weird you out. Like, oh, look, Luke's gone crazy old hermit. That's what it was played for. It wasn't played to make the world feel real. It was played for...
Oh, sorry, it was green milk in The Last Jedi.
Was it green milk? Yeah. That's worse.
I don't know my milks. But yeah, I think like it's... There's definitely been something about having like all these locations that are like at least a good mix of CGI and real places, because I think they filmed on location for a bunch of them. Like
they did,
the camp where they were training before they went on the heist, that was like filmed on location. Like I don't know where it was, but like they filmed it somewhere, and it was outdoors, so you got the feel of it a lot more. And I think that subconsciously, the brain registers when a lot of things are done in front of a green screen. I think maybe people don't clock it at the time, but I think like there is that little bit of it's
the uncanny valley effect, but it even happens for like nature, because you'll be watching something, you'll be like, it's too perfect, it's too who was it said it in the comments? I'm reading here. It was many starts of night was, my dad called it the Apple aesthetic. It's too shiny. That's exactly what it is, because you can look at something and go, yeah, that looks realistic, but your brain is going, it's not real though.
Yeah,
it's all CGI. It's not like the brain knows, I think, and it's that kind of, it's almost the difference between you're watching it and you're thinking, oh, this is a dream, versus, oh, this is a place I could actually be.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of, it almost feels dreamlike in a lot of places. Whereas Andor, I'm like, oh yeah, that looks like, you know, you could go walking up the Campsies in Scotland and it would look like that.
Yeah.
You know.
Nah.
So it's that kind of.
What did you think about the natives of the place where the heist takes place? You know, the ones that hike and go on a pilgrimage. Did you get Highland clearance vibes?
I did. I did. I had people that have been forced off their land, and they go back up to the place where, you know, they used to gather, and they got to watch the old world happen, was what I saw. And they were described as being the naturists and the, you know, the spiritualists and the other people. And that's often, it was almost a very kind of almost Stonehenge-y type experience. Like, yeah. But I definitely got Highland clearances. It was people who've been forced off the land, and they're getting to go there for this event, and they were able to reconnect with where they are from, whilst the place is still being taken over.
It's funny because I clocked it as well, but it's David Heyman who plays the chief.
Is it?
Yes, and he's from Glasgow.
Yes, yeah.
So I did, like, I knew that I recognised his face because I think he has done. I think he's played a similar kind of role, or at least I recognised his face from something else. I don't know which exactly. But yeah, I thought that was interesting. Like the kind of parallel there. And I think there was also a wee bit of that when it came to where Cassian Andor's actually from. Like the planet where like the Empire then went and fucking wrecked it.
Well, it's a very good. It's a very, you know, it's not necessarily just Scottish people, but it's a very good, focal point of how colonialism affects people.
Yeah.
And I thought it was really interesting that the planet where they're on, when everything kicks off, there's a good mix of Glaswegian working class accents, Latina working class accent. It was very much, this is working class people that are being affected by this. This is working class people that are being forced out of their homes and being forced to work in these conditions. And it was a very good kind of, this is what colonization does. And even for the, you know, the kind of, a lot of people, when they think colonization, they don't necessarily think of white faces other than being the oppressor. Whereas in Scotland, we were colonized by fellow white people. You know, that was the kind of, it played that very well with, you know, the different cultures that you were seeing, was that colonization looks the same, but the people who get colonized, the only difference is their ability to fight back.
Yeah.
And that was very well done, I thought. And it made this really kind of good, almost working class solidarity, whereas a lot of the previous stuff has been very, the people at the top managing things, the people in power, the people that have the fancy, you know, Curzantian accents, which is the posh upper British accent. Yeah. The good people in power, basically, the people with power that are good, whereas this was actually people just going, no, fuck you, and causing a riot.
Yeah.
You know, that was, you know, really real to me.
So, yeah, I mean, I think, like, it's interesting kind of going into, like, some people were kind of scratching their heads because a lot of people have been saying that Disney have somehow managed to produce, like, anti-fascist propaganda, basically. And let's just say there's been some discourse about it.
I've seen it, yeah.
A lot of people going, like, a wee bit skeptical about, like, Disney having a hand in producing something like Andor, because I think it's hard to see, and you've seen the last 30 minutes of the finale, like, you've definitely seen, you know, it's quite a realistic, like, protest scene where it all kind of kicks off, right? I'm guessing you've seen the speech and then the aftermath of that. Yeah.
Yes.
What were your thoughts on that?
That's when I started greeting. That was when I was absolutely just like, that's your ma going to, like, listen, they're going to try and shove you down the mine like they did your dad, away and fight, away and get away from these people that are basically going to turn everyone into slaves. And it was a very good, well done scene. And it was very realistic in terms of how a lot of us do respond to things in today's, narrative as well. Sadly, it takes the death of someone to motivate people. The fact that this character was able to speak beyond the grave because of how she planned her death and everything was good. It was really, really well done. And you have this kind of, Mon Mothma's often, the mother of the rebellion. That's what she was called in a lot of the canon, the mother of the rebellion. And then you actually have the mother in this scene of the main character giving a speech about rebelling and fighting back. To me, that's the parallel between the symbolic mother of the rebellion and the working class, someone who lived in poverty, someone who couldn't afford to turn the heating on, which comes up fairly often. And then you have her inciting fight back, fight with violence. This, we've been complacent too long. And to me, that was fantastic. And the violence that happens after it is cathartic.
It's cathartic. It's really well like choreographed. Like I thought it was like, and I think, to be honest, I think film in general is getting a lot better at it. And like, again, slight tangent, but like, see stuff like Outlaw King, like the Robert the Bruce. I was about to say Robert the Burns there, but like, the Outlaw King and Robert the Bruce.
Yes.
Like and even some of like the World War I films that are like coming out at the moment. There's a lot more focus on just how like gritty and messy fighting actually is. Like maybe like 10-20 years ago it was a bit more like flashy, and like they were showing off really slick fighting choreography in like medieval battles, but like in Outlaw King it's a fucking muddy, slippery mess, and everyone's like stumbling over each other and like, fucking ripping up helmets and stabbing people in the throat. And even in like the World War I ones where like you have people who are exhausted fighting and they're like, kind of half-heartedly trying to bayonet each other. And like, I feel it's not quite that, because obviously they've still got to keep it kind of PG for Star Wars. But like, I thought showing the kind of chaos of the fighting there in a way that wasn't very Star Wars flashy. It was stormtroopers who were like on the ground, really nervous. They didn't know what to do. They were like, after the bomb goes off and like the ammo dump detonates, like you can see the fascists kind of panicking a little bit. You can see,
because they're expecting their shiny uniforms to intimidate people enough that they won't have to actually fight. They're banking on the scary imagery of what they are to be like, people will just bow down because we look intimidating. And then you have a guy literally hauling off with the funeral brick and just fucking ramming it in someone's face. I'm like, nice. that is how the real fight would go. Yeah.
Now, apparently I read somewhere that how the last thing she says before the guy like flips over the robot is "fight the Empire." Yes. Apparently the writers really pushed for that to be an F-bomb. They were desperate for it to be like, fuck the Empire. And then I feel like if there was one point in time that Star Wars
Disney gets to say fuck
should have been allowed an F-bomb, it was that. It would have been like, I get fight the Empire. I think that it was just as good. It almost gives you that like emotional, come on then, fucking get stuck into them. But fuck the Empire would have been like amazing.
It would have. It would have broke the fandom trilogy because they don't say fucking Star Wars, they say criff.
Yeah.
And that does not have the same impact in her. No, if she stood there and went criff the Empire, a lot of people would have been
way too close to yiff, so not allowed. But yeah, I think it would have been it would have been amazing if they'd done that. But I think like, see the fight after it, you've got the kid, obviously, who's young and his father's been like tortured and battered. I'm not sure if his father dies, actually. I'm trying to remember. But
I don't remember either.
The kid that chucks the bomb, he's clearly like designed it like well in advance. I wasn't sure if everyone else in the march knew that the kid had a bomb or not. I'm not sure if that was conveyed. I
don't think they did. Yeah,
I think it was this kid kind of wanting to fight back a wee bit more, which in a way kind of prompted everyone, because obviously you saw the big lad who was hitting folk with the memorial brick. He was like,
fantastic scene.
Yeah, he was hauling the wee kid back, because obviously another bit that I loved was the guy who rings the bell or like hammers the anvil. I loved him Sparta kicking a stormtrooper off the tower. I thought that was an amazing, just an amazing wee addition, because like it cuts back to the guy who ordered the stormtrooper to go up there, and you sees the boy falling from the tower.
It's really the guy that gives the orders for a lot of things. You can see the people that give the orders realizing the reality of it. Like they've climbed the greasy pole, and then you can see on their faces when they're ordering people to their death, and it hits them.
Yeah.
And you can see them having doubts about what they're doing. Not enough doubts to necessarily leave what they're doing, but I did like at the end of the episode where the guy from the very, very first episode, who's what kind of like the local police enforcement, when he realizes what he's enabled through his own small petty...
Is this the Scottish guy?
The Scottish guy that was absolutely... Yeah, the Scottish guy that was very pro-law, like he was very much, he's separating himself from his fellow working class people because he's trying to climb the pole.
I hate to see it, but I like every single Empire Scottish accent in the show, and there are a couple of them.
There are.
I just think unionist, man.
It does.
There's just something about it. There's something about it, and I'm not afraid to say that.
Is that very kind of? I don't think you can explain it to anyone who's not Scottish. It does have that vibe.
I think there's a very much a Scottish side to it, but then I think there's also the kind of like selling out people. And I don't know. I see that as a very unionist thing.
Well, they are. They're siding with the literal empire.
The empire.
It is. But you have that scene where he's quite with it. He's all for it. And then he actually, at the end of it, you cut to him and he's just fucking drinking in an alleyway.
Yeah.
Because he's realising what he's enabled is, it goes from, 2 of my men have died to what the fuck have I enabled by siding with these people.
And it's interesting because you see that side of it, and then there's another Scottish character that gets knifed by the woman, and he follows her, and it's almost like he's trying to intimidate her, and she's like, "I'll intimidate you," and stabs him in the chest, because he has a Scottish accent as well, and I feel like it's another type of like.
Well, her Scottish. There's a Scottish boyfriend at the start who turns. Yeah. And it's like, that's the people that side with these things, that the people that are like, if you just follow the rules and do as you're told, everything will be fine, when that's not true.
I was kind of surprised at the amount of Scottish people and Scottish accents in it, to be honest.
So was I, yeah.
Like, I know that there hasn't been tons of American accents in like really strong American accents throughout Star Wars. I mean, if you think about, it's always been like Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine, and like even like Darth Vader's obviously James Earl Jones. Is James Earl Jones American? I don't know if he is.
Yes.
He is, yeah. But like, I feel like there's
always been that. It's like very British imperialistic.
Beforehand, it was very like Eton. Like, I mean, if you think of like the originals, it was always very like posh English, like received pronunciation, like imperial officer. And I feel like they've now added women, and they've also now got some Scottish accents in there. I've not heard Welsh. We've not had a Welsh imperial officer yet.
No.
But I think that you don't hear a Northern Irish imperial officer either.
No, I think for some accents, I think with like Northern Irish, can't say that, Northern Irish accents, they might have someone on the sensitivity team going, maybe don't do that.
Whereas with Scottish accents, I think they're like, oh, well, that's an old fight. That's over and done with. Meanwhile, Scotland's going, no.
So I'm not sure if there's someone in the writing team that's like deliberately making that like commentary on like what the constitutional debate in the UK currently is. But like, I find it really easy to read into quite a lot of the stuff from Andor from a Scottish independence lens, and I know that's a lens that I'll just naturally view a lot of stuff through, and I'm not saying that they're deliberately making it like that, but there's definitely elements of it that I can kind of go,
I can see it. To me, it's a mix of good working class cultures that are fighting back against imperialism at this point in time. And while Scotland was complicit in a lot of the imperialism, that was because we'd been colonised for quite a while at that point. But it's that kind of...
I also see a lot of like Northern England in the mining town just naturally as well. Like I think that's...
It's very working class. I've said it before, it's very working class, and it's nice to see because again, it's Carrie Fisher had this, she was told she had to have this Eton type British accent.
Yeah.
And they all had, apart from Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, they all had these very posh Bretonian Eton accents. And it's actually nice to see people that actually have a working class accent portraying working class realities. Because again, you could very easily be like, oh yeah, that would be my dad down the mines in space. It was a very real kind of relatable, oh, these people could be me type thing. Whereas I've never once looked at Carrie Fisher's character and went, yeah, I could be a space princess that does all these fantastical things. I could be the woman in the street that hauls off and smacks somebody.
Yeah.
But I couldn't be at the level of the upper echelon of that would be running the rebellion. But I could very realistically be the woman in the market who's buying stuff and then who hauls off and smacks somebody. It's very relatable in that sense.
I think that's another thing that Andor does well, and we don't need to go into it too much, but like I think it does show the different levels that people may just find themselves on where they can contribute to like one overarching cause. Like you can see there is almost like the workers' riot in the town at the end. Now that's and you can see that Stellan Skarsgård's character who spectates a lot of it, that's not something he was envisioning. He seed it as like a high priority heist thing, whereas that's more like the masses rising up, and that's not something that he was anticipating, which I find quite interesting because obviously that's kind of what he's wanting. He's wanting this big uprising, but I think that even he wasn't particularly prepared for it.
He wasn't prepared for the reality of it. Because there's a difference between imagining the glorious revolution and what it actually is.
Yeah.
And it's a thing that in Terry Pratchett did it really well in the 25th of May.
Yeah.
He has his whole revolution there, and it's people write glorious songs about it. It looks fantastical. It sounds noble, and then you get right down to it. You're watching your friend get shot through the eye with an arrow. Yeah. It's the stuff. The glory comes after, and it's written by the people that survived, or it's written by the people who observed it from afar, thinking, "Oh yes, it was a noble cause." But noble causes are often built on blood.
See, it's interesting. That's what you saw in that, because I kind of read it a little bit differently. I thought Stellan Skarsgård's character was more than prepared for it, but I think I feel like he was almost surprised at how soon it happened. I think
I can see that too. Yeah,
I kind of read into it he was in it for a wee bit more of the long haul. And he wasn't expecting an uprising like that to happen so quickly, that he wasn't prepared for it in that sense. He wasn't prepared for how soon it kicked off.
I can see that too. I think again, he is someone that's planning for the long term. I think he's thinking it's going to be a longer fight and people aren't as willing to fight. And then you literally just have people hauling off with a funeral brick.
Yeah.
I love that scene so much. It's just so, can you imagine someone's carrying basically your tombstone? You are giving a speech from beyond the grave, and the first thing someone does is take your tombstone and just rams it down someone's throat. Fantastic. That's what I want. turn me into a brick and then just lob me at somebody.
I mean, actually, it was also nice that was just a good bit of like world building in general. Like, as part of like the culture of that planet, you become part of the, you become part of the foundation of that society with like that kind of memorial brick. I kind of like that idea.
It's nice,
yeah. But yeah, I thought like I'm really interested to where it goes next, because like I think you will like there's obviously going to be an immediate backlash from that. Use my ash alter to brain a billionaire. Well, there's plenty to choose from. You'll have to pick your billionaire. But yeah, I'm excited to see where they take it, because like there's obviously going to be backlash from it. Like the Empire are going to get upset. And I'm wondering what's like the next thing.
I'm really interested. I've not been this invested in Star Wars stuff for a long time. Like, right? I enjoyed Obi-Wan, I enjoyed The Mandalorian. I'm actively invested in where the storyline is going, and I promised myself I wouldn't do that after sequels. Sequels.
I mean, the writers are talented, and
they are.
Like, one of the things that I actually respect, like, from them a lot more, is the lack of plot armor they have given side characters. Because I think it would have been really, really easy for them to have made a film about this and then have made plot armor for like characters. Whereas if you think about basically every single one except the other woman on the heist dies. Because the guy that
was gutted.
The guy who writes in the journal is the manifesto.
Gutted. Yeah. It just, as soon as I'm not going to say what happened, but as soon as I saw what happened, I paused what we were watching, and I was just like, oh, he's dead.
Yep.
And it drags it out longer. It gives you hope, and then it's just
because he dies. He dies on the operating table, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get him to hope, and then he dies anyway. And it was just like, just gutted. It was so good though, because it makes a good job of making them feel tangible, and you're like, yeah, it's Star Wars. They're going to make it.
Yeah. But I think it also really, like, again, it probably comes back to being, like, a bit grounded, that, like, this is a rebel fight. People are going to die for the cause. And, like, it's funny how you see Cassian in, like, Rogue One. I reckon by the end of this series, you'll be rewatching Rogue One in a completely different light. Because you'll, like... I can actually understand why Cassian was super pissed for like half of Rogue One.
Yeah.
Because like this random lassie turns up and just starts ordering him about, and he's like, yeah, I have seen so many people fucking die.
It was funny because Mothman actually forgot that Cassian was in Rogue One. So we were talking about it, and he was like, oh, I'm like, yeah, this doesn't end well for anybody. But that was the, again, it's not just grim. It's not like Game of Thrones levels of death and grim violence. It's not gratuitous with it. It's poignant, but it's not gratuitous. The appeal is not the violence. The appeal is the story that's being told through them. And that's what makes... If it was more like Game of Thrones, I would not give a shit. Yeah. I am over anything that does the same level of, we're going to do the violence like Game of Thrones. I'm over it.
Yeah.
I was over it in the first season of Game of Thrones. But it's so well done. It's so well written. And I'm genuinely excited to see where it goes. And I'm going to be mad if they make it bad.
Yeah, no, I mean, like...
I will riot.
That was such, like... The one thing I say, that was such a solid 12 episodes that, like, one of the things that Andor's been, like, criticised for from maybe some of the more simple members of the fan base would maybe be a bit mean, but, like, people who think that there should be action every single episode. And it's like, you don't get a scene like the last half an hour of the finale without the 3 episodes of build-up at the start where you understand the culture of the people that are in that town. Like, you can't like not have any, like it can't be action all the time. So that gives me like the fact that they did the build up and the payoff in a 12 episode series gives me faith that the next 12 episodes will be decent.
Yeah, it's good storytelling. Just from a fundamental story crafting aspect, it's really well done, and it's been well done to a degree that I don't think we've seen from a lot of the Star Wars stuff recently. I mean, the TV stuff's been good. It's been good, but the level of detail that's been put into this, I'm going, oh, these are people that are actually world building.
Yeah.
And it's not silly, fun world building. It's literally, how do we build up to a rebellion? How do we build up to showing how the original trilogy happens?
You should see the notepad I've got. I've got fuckloads of notes on how to start a rebellion. I'm good to go now. I mean, I do need a couple more. Hopefully they fill it in the last couple of episodes, but I've been taking notes how to make space.
Yeah, how to make space rebellions happen. But it's really it also fits the tone and theme for Rogue One, which I feel like some of the other stuff doesn't fit with the movies very well. Whereas you could see this very easily fitting. So it's just good. It's just nice.
I feel like it captures the. It's quite a natural follow on. The grittiness of this series going into Rogue One matches the tone of the film. It's kind of complementing pretty well. But yeah, I mean, I think there's probably not much more we can say on Andor.
Without huge spoilers.
Without like, I mean, I've already spoiled an episode or several. But I think like if anyone was wavering on their commitment or like interest in Star Wars, like for me, I was probably at my lowest point having watched like the Disney films. The Mandalorian, it was fine, and I'd watched the Book of Boba Fett.
They're fun.
And I watched Obi-Wan.
They're fun.
One thing that kind of annoyed me with the Book of Boba Fett was it was a little too light touch. I mean, people were like, I did see people putting in Andor and Book of Boba Fett side by side, but there was like the multicolored scooter bikes in the Book of Boba Fett, and it was like these were like filmed within a year of each other. What a massive like improvement on.
Well, it's also different stories they're trying to tell. It's a different, it's the war's already been won in Boba Fett, and it's that you couldn't get away with that when you're trying to build up to there's a war coming. So it's different. They're aiming for different things, but it's also, I feel like they were trying to get into the more fun aspects that they had with Baby Yoda. I think they were leaning heavily into let's get the kids involved with that one, whereas this one feels a little bit more teening up.
It does feel teening up, but at the same time, I mean, the nature of Star Wars though is that like there is like unless they did purely intend for it to like this is teening up now, like this. Yeah, I mean, I'm just glad there's no fucking porgs in Andor.
Yeah.
I remember like there was so like. It's funny how you touched on like The Last Jedi being like a pure comic effect movie, because I feel like it was so hard trying to go like the Marvel route of like kind of laugh a minute or quip a minute. There's a bit at the start of The Last Jedi
because it was written by people that don't know how to tell a story. They know how to do good segues, but you can't make an entire film out of a segue. You actually have to have plot and dialogue and. I mean, the only thing I know about the Rise of Skywalker is the line where you can see Oscar Isaac questioning every life choice he's made that brought him to Star Wars. Somehow returned. Somehow, and you can just see the pain on his face. Going, I'm in Star Wars, and it is this bad. Like, yeah. So to me, the Andor, the Boba Fett's fulfilling a different role from what Andor's trying to fulfill. I don't necessarily think it is just teens and up. I think it can be enjoyed by everyone, but it is definitely getting more into the kind of how the trilogy happened.
Yeah.
So
that's fair. Alrighty, well, I think that will wrap up the Ayesphere 2022.
We're done for the year.
We're done for the year. Yeah, we've got the Castle for Christmas to watch next week in the Discord. We'll have to figure out whose Discord that is because we don't have an Ayesphere Discord.
We can make one.
We could make one maybe. Do you think that'd be sensible? That'll be sensible. Yeah,
that'd be sensible. Rather than invading both your and mine chat for viewing parties, we can just make.
We can concentrate all of you in one area. Yeah, no, that's fair. So we'll do that, and that'll be next week. We could do it same time, or we could do it Saturday. We'll work something out.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. We'll discuss it during the week, and then we'll let you know when we're going to inflict this on everybody.
Yes, exactly. But the good news for everyone who is listening at the moment is that Joy's renewed her contract for the Ayesphere 2023. So we will be back. But I don't know if we call it a season 2. I don't know. We'll see.
We could. We can just go really pretentious and call it season 2 of the Ayesphere.
Oh God, we're gonna have to get writing over Christmas. to make sure that there's no plot segues.
As if we do any planning for these. You literally messaged me this morning. What are we talking about today? And I was like, I just started watching Andor. Let's talk about that.
I'm glad you started watching Andor this week. That was good. But yeah, no, like we will. That is something that we'll be doing in the new year. Don't have
after a wee break.
Yes, after a wee break. Don't expect us to be back the first week of January. We might have a slightly longer break than that. But we will definitely be back.
We'll be back.
We'll be back, we promise. So yeah, hope you've all enjoyed the past 23 episodes of just
us talking shit.
Yeah, whatever.
Tangents, yeah.
Yeah, tangents within tangents. It's actually been really good fun.
It has.
I speak for myself, but I think I also speak for Joy, where we've had a really good laugh doing this, and we really appreciate everyone who joins us in in Twitch chat, and who joins us on the podcast side of things, as in when you listen in on Spotify or whatever it is. It's been really good fun doing it. It's been good fun kind of like planning it, and I think it makes I feel like it is a nice end to my week all the time.
It is, yeah.
And it means that I can then just like drift off into sleep and then start another week of hell. There's like I really like the kind of like the massive coverage of like topics we have. I think that's something that's always quite fun.
It's basically just us talking about whatever we feel like, and it's the fact that everyone is here to humour us and they're actually enjoying it is really great as well. Because if we weren't doing this, we'd just be chatting to each other about these things.
Yeah,
the fact that people want to be involved is lovely.
I love the fact that at the moment in twat, that's Twitch chat, everyone's just saying twat over and over again. I love it. But no, I think it's good. I love how we can do like deep dives on like individual films and individual shows, and then we can have kind of more loosey-goosey discussions with tangents, as well as your kind of overarching political shenanigan episodes. I can't believe the year that we started a podcast, Joy, the Queen dies. Like,
I know.
It's almost like we planned it.
I know. We did not plan.
No, we did not plan.
We did not plan. That was not us.
Yeah, we didn't do that. But yeah, I think for we'll be hanging about in chat for the next 10 minutes. But for those of you who are listening on the podcast side of things, hope you have a fantastic holiday season and a happy new year when it arrives.
Yes, happy new year.
See you in a bit.
Bye bye.